Hash House and Circle Up.
Welcome to On, the Hash House Harrier podcast for interviews, history, and stories. I'm your host, Ra. Today on the podcast, we are in the Caribbean, almost down in South America, with a longtime hasher who's part of the hashing community of one of the biggest attended clubs on a weekly basis. We're going to talk about hashing in the Caribbean in Grenada and how hashing is a big part of life in some islands and some parts of the world where it integrates not just with hashers, but all kind of networking things. Today, welcome on the podcast, Two Shits. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Great. All right, let's tell everybody your hashing origin story. How did you first find the hash and get started? How'd you go to your first hash?
My husband and I came to the Caribbean on our own sailboat in Canada. Some people knew that I was into hiking and running and stuff like that. We were actually in St. Martin. One of the cruisers there, also known as Yachties down here, was saying, "Oh, when you get to Grenada, you got to try hashing. It's huge down there. You really got to try this stuff." I'm like, "Okay, first time I'd ever heard of hashing." So when we got down here, I found the Facebook group and this actually sounds really fun. Of course, trying to get around the island's not big, but if you don't have a car, it can be a bit of a pain. So I actually started buses for cruisers to go because cruisers weren't hashing at that time either. And yeah, once I got into it, oh, that was it. I was hooked. Got very involved, started setting hashes, got my hash name within 2.5 months, actually.
Hash names are not always such a big thing in Grenada hash today. Were they bigger then? What's the story of your hash name?
I had just got trekking poles and I was using two of them, literally my first hash using them. I was coming in with the then hash ass. We were jogging it and I thought, come on, let's make it look like we're racing. So we picked up our pace a bit and I accidentally poked him in the foot with one of its sticks. Right there, I thought, yeah, I'm getting a hash name because this is in front of everybody with the hash ass. So we get back and they're like, yep. So they pulled me up and they said, we're going to make it two sticks, but that's too polite. You haven't been hashing with us that long. So they made it two shits. And don't tell anybody, but actually the hash name.
I want to ask you about that idea of starting the buses. The Yachties community in, say, Martin, Grenada, how much is it connected to the hash? When you started providing buses, did you find hashers or were you recruiting first timers?
I brought in a lot of virgins. St. Martin doesn't hash, but when I got down here to Grenada, it's a large channel. So I just said, hey guys, let's do this. It's a chance to explore. I think the most cruisers I ever got out to a hash was one of our big hashes. We had over 100 cruisers show up. Yeah, you heard correctly. Over 100 cruisers showed up for this. We had 7 buses
Wow.
go to this hash. And yeah, it's incredible. That was one of our biggest hashes, obviously. That was one of the ones we had about 500 hashers.
That was a normal weekly hash.
Oh, no, I think that was the 750th.
Okay.
And so it was a big hash as well. It was a push to get people out there. And of course, people were interested. Plus, it was close enough to what the cruisers are that it wasn't hard to get people. And it was the right time of year when you have most of the people. The stars aligned. I think normally, though, in the early days, I would get probably on average about 30 cruisers going to the hash.
Wow. There's plenty of hash clubs that meet regularly that don't have a turnout of 30 all the time. You should get 30 versions. So back then and ongoing, from the earliest days, what was the logistics for these large packs? Beer, food, parking?
Yeah. It became more interesting after COVID, but yeah, parking was always a consideration. There's definitely comments made when the parking is really poor. That makes it very hard when you're trying to set a trail. I had a place where I had a great trail set. Parking is a nightmare, and it actually got rained out. There's supposed to be 2 river crossings, but there's so much rain, the river was literally completely dangerous. Last minute, okay, let's just throw something together. Very different. Thankfully, everybody understood giving. But logistics wise, yeah, you have to think about the parking. A lot of the times we use what we call pastures or playing fields and we base it from that area. Or you find somewhere that has decent parking if you can. Sometimes you throw caution to the wind because you have such a great place with great trails that you say, I'll be forgiven if the parking's a bit of a shit show. And so that happens. But yes, you also have to consider the fact that the bar has to be up to speed. Typically, we tell them to have about 40 cases of beer ready to go and to have food prepared for about 120 to 150 people. For some of the smaller rum shops and some of the organizations, hosting a hash connect is very worthwhile because they'll see more people in one day than they'll see in a month.
I got the hash with H2O down there just in November. It's a special kind of place. It's one of those places that some people, if they've never been, they might relate to in hashing in Asia. If you're out often, the temperature's warm. If it rains, who cares? You guys did get hit by a hurricane recently. How does that kind of affect the hash? What's the makeup of the club? Because although you have a lot of virgins, there's a lot of local people.
Okay.
And how does it work? There's trail, beer, food, and circle. That's the key components of hashes around the world. And everybody has a different take on what they emphasize and what works. How's it work in Grenada?
Grenada's known for our trails. We have great shiggy. We wear the long socks for a good reason. It's not just a fashion statement for hashers. It's also to literally save your skin when there's razor grass and stuff like that. Because we have so many people and because the cars get stretched out and parking and stuff like that, our circle, it's a pretty sad circle. I have a lot of respect for our current hash master, but for him, it's also not a priority. We've had other hash masters where it's been a higher priority, more downs, a little bit more of that stuff. But the current hash master, it's not his highest priority. I respect that. I mean, he has to do what he does, and that's fine. But yeah, oh my God, I forgot what the damn question was.
Well,
That's hilarious.
let's talk about the beer. 40 cases of beer. What's the logistics of sorting that? How does that get all transported out there and the financing and things like that?
Financing is whoever is running the bar, stuff like that, needs to deal with that stuff. Getting there is easy. We actually have a working relationship with the brewery. They will deliver that and a tent actually, work as the bar. They deliver it when the person wants. Usually the tent's delivered the day of. The beer is whenever they happen to be delivering it to the area. So that's not the hardest part. And whoever's, I'll say, hosting it has to make sure they've got a big enough cooler, make sure the beer is cold enough. So that part is not so hard. Plus, actually, Carib is a sponsor of ours. We get a couple of cases a month from them for various reasons. As you found out, our downs, you don't get to drink it. You get sprayed as a virgin.
Yeah. Yeah,
Spray.
let's make sure that's pretty clear to everybody because that's that's a different experience. It was pretty fun. There's a video. People can go to the Grenada Hash Facebook page and see it if they want. But downs are even sometimes up the nose.
They wouldn't face. That's nasty.
And it's such a big event with that many people. It's a different experience for people that are used to small clubs and going to hash weekends. It's like a hash weekend event in terms of size. There's a microphone, music, food, a food tent, and a beer bar set up there.
It's a mandatory thing that's got to be there.
Okay, now these trails, you've got a lot of people and known for shiggy. What's a typical Grenada hash trail? How long?
I can't give you distance because, again, when you've got hills and mud, it changes everything. Typically, what a lot of us try to work for, but again, this is not hard and fast. We tend to try and say it's about an hour, 15 minutes for the middle of the pack people. We had a hash the other day where the front runners got in half an hour, but it was so flipping muddy. The last people were coming in 2 hours after. It was not a fun situation. I missed that one, which I'm not really complaining about. But yeah, typically what I do, I'll say for me is setting a trail. I tend to do something that in the beginning, it's not turning into a bottleneck immediately. So it's a little spread out. A little, that's one of the few times I say a little bit of road's not a bad thing. We have so many trails here that if somebody starts putting a lot of road in, it's actually frowned upon. Typical hash for me, I try to make sure that it's a fairly open area in the beginning so it stretches out the path. Then you start getting into the trails and it sorts itself out. You might get an area where you might think this is going to get pretty rough after, say, 50 people. So you might throw some rope on there just so that the footing's a bit safer, especially for the slower walkers. They're the ones who are less fit, and usually they get the worst trail to walk on by that point. I try to bear that in mind, especially in the rainy season. Dry season, not so bad. When I'm walking it, I try to say, all right, if I can walk this, let's say an hour 15, then that would probably make a pretty decent runner's trail, or an hour and a half for the runner's trail. Hour 15, maybe for the walker's trail when I'm setting, tends to me to be a nice.
It's a green place. How wild is the bush and access? Are you, what about going through villages, people's property? How's all that work?
We definitely go through villages, but it's funny how close you can be to finding pretty decent trail. Even in areas that you look out, this is pretty built up. But within 10 minutes, you can be in some great bush. If you're going through somebody's property, we try to ask for permission. Generally, people are really good about that. There's a lot of right of ways with the properties here and where the houses are. A lot of the times was a family land and then it's got partitioned off. People don't necessarily have a road or an easy way to access it. They literally have paths. It's not much more than a trail, but they have paths between the houses. And so it's understood that it's a bit of a right of way. But if I go close to somebody's house, I would say, hey, this is what's happening. Do you mind? Hashing is actually pretty well known here as well by this point. So it's not a hard sell. Occasionally you get somebody who's a pain in the neck about it, but generally speaking, people are really open about it. They're friendly. If you come through, it's fine because their neighbors come through all the time. And then we also
Great.
find hunt trails and farmers trails and stuff like that.
Let's talk about the community. And as an expat, as a cruiser, now you live on the island, not on a boat. But the connections, you said the hash is well known. Does that mean it has a good reputation? And how does that affect life being a hasher in kind of a big fish, small pond expat in a place on an island like that?
It's a fantastic way. Part of the reason we decided to stay in Grenada is because I made so many friends with the hash. It's the fantastic way to get to know people. And it really is all across. Okay, yeah, we've got the cruisers. We've got business people. We've got people who are pretty high up in the number of organizations. You wouldn't know it when you're hashing with them, but all of a sudden you go after it's like, oh, wait, you might see them on a social media post. Yeah, I didn't know they did that. That's cool. Or you start chatting and oh, that's what you do. We've got the top guy from the electrical company here. He's a hasher. Bank presidents, people who are high up in some of the biggest business families and stuff like that. I actually tell young people, you want to network, go hashing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been a great way for networking for me as well. Yeah, no, but it's a lot of fun.
I'm going to bring up the unfortunate event that put Grenada on some people's hashing radar. We heard about the story, and it is a bush place and it's a hot place, and you get lots of virgins. Let's talk about the unfortunate tragedy that happened with a virgin earlier this year.
Yeah, that was just over a year ago. Ironically, it's the same place that you did your hash.
No.
So yeah, we do have sign-in sheets. When if you're a virgin, you sign in. We have runners, walkers, everybody has to sign in. When you get back, you have to check your name on. This guy came by himself on a bus. And so he didn't have people looking out for him on the hash. If I go to a hash, I'm driving people. So if I don't show up, it's like, where's Two Shits? Where's Lynn? So a lot of us who've been around for a while, somebody's going to go, wait a second, I haven't seen someone. Plus, when we sign in and we don't check in, then okay, this is a little more serious. With him, his name was actually scrawled so badly that we couldn't even read it. So if he didn't check in, they checked the trail. They swept the trail with no sign of it. Okay, at that point, you're not sure what to do. What happened with him is he ended up getting some kind of a heat thing, whatever. And he had been seen on trail. He had been seen. He was like, no, we saw him there close to the end. He ended up getting a heat emergency of some sort. And we think that he wandered off the trail, not extremely far, but this was in a residential area at this point, and literally fell behind a bush where he wasn't seen. He didn't bring water with him. He unfortunately was wearing all dark clothing. And it was one of the hottest hashes. You're all commenting on the heat that one. It was a flippin' hot hash. My liter and a half of water was gone by the end. No problem. Friends who have been hashing here all their lives pretty much were saying, yeah, one was saying, yeah, I took my shirt off twice. And he usually doesn't have shirt off, but he took it off twice. He was getting that hot. So it was a horrible use. terrible thing. We finally realized that this guy was really missing. He was a medical school student. When his friends were saying the day after, we're not seeing him. And then by Monday night, when he had missed classes, that's when the word came out and went, all right, this guy's really missing. I was called because I have networks everywhere. And the next morning, the police were looking for him. And that night, with the help of Ashers, actually, Ashers found him because they joined the search party as well. Because again, they're used to walking through this. And yeah, they found him, unfortunately.
Okay, so that's a tough thing to be near and to have happen. It turns out it was a bunch of unfortunate events and the hash. There was no personal blame or nobody did anything wrong except the unfortunate guy that had that happen with his decisions and the weather, everything that happened. But how did people handle it? How did the hash handle that?
First thing is now virgins must put their phone number down. If you don't show up, we can at least call you and you can find out, all right, where the hell are you? I think overall we're far more careful too about a lot of it's been really good too. If somebody looks like they're struggling on trail, we don't leave them by themselves. He would look like he was struggling on trail at the time. He was up there with the front runners, extremely fit. The guy was a fitness influencer in his own way and stuff like that. So they
Wow.
had seen him and then just, all right, no problem, keep going. We try to make sure that we remind people, look, bring water, it's hot, have a buddy of some sort so that at least somebody can say, hey, I haven't seen so and so back yet. So it's made us a little bit more aware that just the check in obviously isn't enough. And then having the phone number is good too, because then you can try calling the person. It's funny though, because I'm one of the first aid people and I never carry my phone on trail. So that's an ironic thing.
What about being another aspect of island club and life? What about special events? What's an away hash if you live on an island?
We go to karaoke. Karaoke, unfortunately, the karaoke weekend did not happen this year because Beryl, one of the hurricanes you were talking about, trashed the island horribly. It just destroyed everything there. And so us being there would be a stress on the infrastructure. But we'll be back there next year. And usually it's in October, we do the karaoke hash, and that's our away hash. We ferry up and it's a full weekend. So usually there's a pub crawl on the Friday night and a meet and greet. Saturday's the main hash. Sunday morning is usually a live hair hash. We do a garbage pickup somewhere. People hang out and then they take the ferry back usually the Sunday night.
There's a couple other of the hash traditional things. Red dress runs, how's that handled in Grenada? It's diverse. It's not a Muslim island, but it's conservative.
Very Christian, and it's actually illegal for men to cross dress, except for carnival. And there's a huge amount of homophobia here. So I'm just being honest. We do the red dress run. It's always around Valentine's Day. We do it in areas where it's less of a concern, where people are a little more open minded. So we don't do it in what we call up in the country. We tend to do it in areas where it's a little more urban, but there's still trail. And it's an area that that people understand what's going on and they don't freak out. Even in some of those areas, we've heard people will make comments, but that's why we tend to do it in the same area though, because it's people understand it and there's less likelihood of any major problem.
The Caribbean identity. We have World Interhash, Eurohash, or American Interhash, and there is an Inter-Carib hash that got started. What's the identity there? What's your impression of that with people that you meet, expats and other hashers, and how much inter-island travel there's? Because Grenada is almost in South America. It's the last thing you get to before Trinidad and Tobago.
Sometimes Trinidad will set a bunch of people up and they'll help them hash us for a bit. If any of us happen to end up on another island, we certainly join the hash group, hash with them as well. We had hosted an inter-Caribbean hash. How long ago was that? That was back when Saki was still hash master, my early years. That would have been about 2011, 2012 maybe. And we hosted inter-Caribbean hash then. Certainly I was much more involved in this one because I've been hashing long enough. I set one of the trails. And it's fun because a good crowd from Barbados came over. We had some people from Trinidad as well. That thing for us though is actually inter-island travel. It's easy between Trinidad and Barbados, but say Antigua, St. Kitts, where they also have hash groups down here, it becomes a bit more of a hassle. The participation between different islands gets harder in that situation, just for the fact that transportation between the islands is actually a royal pain in the butt. So some of us do a fair amount of traveling and we will seek out hash groups. But there's a lot of people who don't. Not everybody here's got the disposable income.
Yeah. How much does it cost to hash a Grenada then?
Oh, the hash in Grenada is cheap. Our hash is $3 EC, which is just over $1 American. And then if you can't afford that, we don't force you to. Our beer is always cheap. It's 5 EC, which is just under $2 American, which isn't bad. Food shouldn't be expensive. Again, that should be around maybe $4 American for food. Hashing is not an expensive thing. You don't have to buy the food and everything else. And a lot of us try to help give other people rides. So then transportation costs, although the bus system here isn't that expensive, just not convenient every time. So hashing here is actually not expensive, which makes it accessible for everyone. So it's not bad here, but it's just getting overseas. There's getting
Let's talk about the t-shirts a little bit. You have a lot of very colorful t-shirts that
yeah,
the Grenada hashers wear them, and they tend not to be in the vein of the offensive, vulgar pictures with swear words on them. They're nice. And you have a special t-shirt that you can earn as a hair.
yeah. Okay, so our t-shirts are affordable. And yeah, for every special hash, whether it's an anniversary or a certain number, we actually had a hash on Leap Day. So they had shirts for that, which is cool. We do that, and they're not overly expensive. And they're actually, thankfully, now they're no longer cotton, and it's actually decent, breathable material. But yes, if you set a trail, you can get a GH3 hair shirt, and it's a black t-shirt. On the front, it's got a bunny on it, the bunny's face, and on the back, it says GH3 hair, and it's got the rabbit's ass on it. And yeah, those get earned, and yeah, it's a fun thing. Some people are just, oh, I got to get one of those, and I've had mine for a while, and you get one, and I guess maybe if we wear them out, we can get another one. I've never actually checked that.
It's interesting. What about the age group? You get a lot because it's cheap and it takes some fitness to do those kind of intense trails and be ready to cross water crossings. What the age span there? Are you getting new youngsters join as regulars over time?
We get a lot of parents who bring their kids initially. The youngest hasher I've seen has been 2 weeks. Mom carried him on. She actually hatched until just before she had him. So her hashing's drop and run. And so, yeah, we get people who bring their kids. They'll carry their babies, which I am always in awe of. And then as they get older, with the one hasher, she brings her 3-year-old out regularly. He walks as much as he can, and then she'll carry him if he has to. And that's good. And yeah, kids come in. I think partly because of the fact that it's not, I'll say rude. I'm personally not that concerned about it, but some people are not that fond of it. And that's part of the reason we don't do the songs. Some of us would love to have more of the songs. At one point, we did the Why Are We Waiting? That was about the only one, but even that's been lost over time. But yeah, we've got people who are like 80 still hashing too. Might even be somebody over 80, but I know we've got one regular who's 79, and he's actually one of our better runners as well. Impressive, man. But yeah, it's very wide range. So it's interesting because I know some hash groups in some places are finding it tough to get new members. And we don't have that problem at all.
I imagine a lot of people go to vacation on Grenada are there to go to the beach and do water sports. I was there and it seemed like a typical hash. It's a giant group. We're out in the bush a lot. Do you guys have beach run? Oh, you do?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Oh, it just depends on where you are. I personally hate them because the sand and the shoes is a real pain in the butt. But no, regularly have. So that one restaurant, I know you guys went with umbrellas. We often use their parking lot as a spot. That's where we start our red restaurant from, as an example. I've set a hash along that beach once or twice myself. If we're on the East Coast, we've got some great trail area that goes right along the beach, and it's really pleasant. No, we do beach ones all the time. It just depends where you're setting the hash, whether it is inland or by the coast. It's very diverse that way.
Yeah.
We do beach runs regularly, and actually we love it when it's actually at a beach or on a river because people can go and have a little bath afterwards, which is really nice. That always makes people come out. When you know there's water available, it makes it much more popular.
Well, I'm going to pursue a couple of the people that I met there that have been hashing for almost the entire time of Grenada. Maybe we'll get to them to talk about their experiences with the change. But over the time that you were there and when you start bringing the buses, and now at this giant size, has it been consistently for the last decade? And then let's talk about what happened during COVID. Was it always that big? How much does it vary?
I'd say our peak was back in around 2012 to maybe 2014 is when we were really getting the big crowds. We consistently were getting about 200 hashers or more.
Wow.
We had a hash master at that time who was he was a huge fan of it. That's when we went from being every 2 weeks to every week. It was mentioned in even some of our vacation guide things. Hashing gets mentioned because it is something to do here. And we get hash tourists. And that was at its peak. And then we got some hash masters who weren't as worried about making it a big thing. They were just trying to make sure that we had a decent hash. And I can honestly say a hell of a lot easier setting a trail when you know there's fewer people. The logistics are far easier in that regard. And then COVID, our island got completely shut down. We were under complete quarantine. The only time you were stuck at home, unless the stores were open, and then you were allowed to go to the bank machine, shopping, medical stuff. But even then, that was very limited as to when we were allowed to go out. Otherwise, it was, I'll call it house arrest. And I can understand why they did it. We weren't allowed to travel between parishes, which you guys would know as counties. At one point, there was no hashing, and we couldn't have. And then after a while, so you could have groups up to say 10, maybe 20. What some of us ended up doing is we created mini hash, quiet, under the radar as much as possible, and trying to stay out of sight and trying to social distance at the same time, which is easy when you're in a place like this because everything's done outside anyway. And so we did that, and then some of the groups, maybe two groups, got together, and we tried to be fairly quiet about it. And then when we finally got the okay hash again, it was like mask up when you're around the group, when you're on trail, not necessary, trying social distance. And that's when we really started using hashes and plays. Yes, so it was easy. It's actually made it a lot easier in a lot of ways. The parking was a piece of cake. On the other hand, because you've got cars spread out and people are starting to do more tailgating kind of stuff, it really changed the culture of the hash. Because when I first started hashing, how long? 15 years ago, 14 years ago here, a lot more dancing, a lot more party. Post COVID, it's a little more sitting around and just hanging out with. So the vibes have changed entirely. Oh, still lots of alcohol. That's hasn't changed. Still have the music. But you get some people out there dancing, and occasionally it turns into a fun thing. But it certainly has changed things in that regard.
Yeah, but when you do it with the big collections, a lot of times first timers, maybe one timers show up. How often does a regular hasher end up setting trail there then?
Oh, geez. It depends. We actually got to a point where they had to say, okay, you can't do more than 4 in a year because we had some people who were trying to take hashes all the time. We have a policy, the hair is not supposed to make money. We've had hares who have taken the hash so that they can make money from it. And then sometimes the trail's substandard, so they're more worried about the people in the bar. That's a whole other thing.
Hmm.
But just got to a point that some people are just getting a lot of hash. Then they said, okay, you don't get more than 4 in a year. If you want to do a hash here, you have to talk to the hair raiser. Oh, probably a good 3 or 4 months in advance. If you want a date, sometimes longer. And then occasionally somebody will cancel by the last minute. I got a shout last week saying, you said a hash December 28th. Yeah, I think I can pull something off. Just this morning, my venue has been sorted. I know the area pretty well, so it's not going to be hard. So I'll go out and start reckoning on Thursday, a couple of reckonings, and I should have something settled down pretty well. If I'm doing a last minute one, I don't pick an area I don't know at all, and I try somewhat close. But an area that hasn't been done ad nauseum either.
Yeah. Two shits. You're obviously a fan of Grenada. You moved in and you're there now. But I can tell you that visiting, I didn't know much about it. It's a great place. It's almost completely safe. It's
Yep.
warm weather, got beaches, got a hash. So I'm just gonna say people ought to go visit there. Now, and there's a lot of friendly people. You were a great host, and there's lots of friendly hashers. It's a very smiley place among a group like the hashers. A lot of physical activity because it's a beach. You can act people fitness, exercise, swimming, and boating. So it's a little paradise. I don't want to have it be a downside, but what's the toughest thing about living in Grenada for you?
We're at the end of the supply. If there's something in specific that you want, it sounds really funny, but good quality bras and stuff like that, they're hard to find. When we end up in Canada to visit family and stuff like that, I go up with carry on, I come back with 3 bags. If there's certain things that you really want to have or you need to have, it's not the easiest place. And it's not inexpensive to buy imported stuff. The government makes their money from import. Customs duties are the biggest form of income. But on the other hand, you can plant a rock and the damn thing will grow here. Everything grows. It's very fertile. So you can find local fruits and vegetables. It was just like, as guys were here, we didn't have any local bananas because they hadn't come back yet after barrel. We now are getting local bananas again and other things that are acting up. Chocolate, that's a whole other thing. The cocoa here got decimated, as you found out as well. And so, that'll come back in a strange way. But yeah, that's the hardest thing is being at the end of the supply chain. You can't get everything you want. So if you're fortunate enough to go overseas or have people coming from overseas and bringing things in, it makes it a lot easier. But yeah, I think that would be the hardest.
They got about everything else you need. So we'll tell people if you're gonna want to take a hash vacation to join the Grenada Facebook group, and it's up to date. There's a report, and they can contact you and a few other people on there and make sure they know where the runs are. You're a great ambassador for Grenada. You seem to have your hands in everything. That's just who you are, and the network of hashing and everything else is connected there. It was great for us to visit and meet you there in that setting and hash with Grenada. What's your outlook? Are you there forever?
Yeah. For the foreseeable future, that's the plan. We're not plan. I mean, I don't have winter clothes, and after the dumping of snow that you guys got, yeah, I'm not interested in that crap or freezing rain or any of that. I would rather sweat a little more than have to buy a whole new set of clothing. A lot of things here, as much as consumer goods are more expensive, stuff like rent and that is far more affordable here. You get the yin and the yang with that. But yeah, it's Grenada's a fun place. There's a lot you can do here. Yeah, I also had to take care of you guys because Hogtown's my other hash, shall we say. Being from Toronto myself, I try to every time I get back, I try to hash there as well. I've actually set a hash there, so I can probably say I've set a hash in 2 different countries.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun. If I go somewhere, I try to find a hash strip and do it just because it's a really neat way to meet people. I join the Mason Lodge and you meet people. I think hashing is the same thing. Almost from a tourist perspective, it's a really good way to find out what's happening. And if anybody wants to just to look at our Facebook group, it's public anyway, so you don't actually have to join it. And by Wednesday, they usually have an event notification. The event's put out. All the information is there, where the hash is, who's setting it, all kinds of stuff, even the menu, the planning menu. We try to make it easy to find it.
I'm glad we went. I do encourage everybody to get down to Grenada. Maybe it's up for you or down for you or over for you, but it's a great place to visit. And future Inter-Caribs. Do you have any idea how that's picked? Who's going to host it?
Okay, it hasn't been one of those things where it's been a consistent thing. I think we did the first one back in, but I have to find the shirt and check what year it was. I think we did the first one, and that was back in the days of Softwood, the one who really liked to push all these things, which was fun. I don't think there's been another one since we set the one this year. And so it's not one of those things like an inter-hash where it's, oh, this is on the calendar and it's got to be done. And then I think that's when Barbados went, yeah, we need to do this. And it's becoming one of those things that people realize that this is actually fun. Maybe we should try and maintain it. Whether it should be every year or not, I don't know. But even making it every other year, I think gives a lot more potential that people will show up. I know Barbados has got a big anniversary hash next year. Next year's our 40th year as well, but I don't know if there's going to be anything specific planned. I'm glad that they packed, but I don't think they're planning a major event because in the Caribbean, it is fun, and it's actually a neat way to do it because even the hash cruises, I don't think they do enough credit to what all of these places are. St. Kitts is a really neat place to hash. Antigua, oh my, that's a little more normal for what I think most hashers would think of. They do a good circle. They've got the religious advisor. They're not as big. But the funny thing with that is during sailing week, they had a whole bunch of the cruisers there that had hashed here and got used to it. I think they had something like 60 virgins, which is more than they ever get normally in hashers. And so it's like, and I'm looking at the pictures going, yeah, those are all Grenada hashers. And I just,
Yeah.
and I actually sent the note to them. Yeah, sorry, we gave them, we sent them to you guys. The way they do it, they actually have a bus that acts as their bar. And so this taxi driver has the bar in the bus,
Wow.
and they work with that, makes it highly mobile. But you can't do that when you've got 200 people.
Yeah.
So it works really well for them.
Yeah, things work really. What about time of year? Apart from Grenada's historically been fairly safe from hurricanes and then all of a sudden got banged. What about time of year to travel to Grenada? Is there a better season, rainy season?
Best time, if you like mud, rainy season, which is basically through the summer up till about December. If you love your mud, hey, come now. Great time. Dry season, I think, is a lot more preferable for people, especially as a tourist, because a lot less rain happening. And so basically, if you come between January and I'd say May, those are the nicest times to come down. Our red dress run is always the closest Saturday to Valentine's Day. The week after that's Grenada's Independence, and we have a hash to that as well, where we wear the Grenada colors, red, gold, and green. But yeah, for most tourists, I would say that after January, yeah, it's a nice. Plus, it's also not as hot here. If you come around August, September, October, it's also the hottest time here, plus the wettest, plus the highest. When everybody wants to get away from the cold, it's the best time to come down.
Right. Well, you're like an encyclopedia of Grenada hashing and Grenada. So it was great to talk to you and get that all recorded. I will post this on the usual on podcast stuff and the Grenada hash. I don't know if any of them have ever heard one of these podcasts we've been doing for a few years. I think everybody there on the hash knows who you are already.
As long as it doesn't sound insulting to our dear hash master. And making noises close to the door. Yeah, that's my only concern. I don't want, but I don't think it was insulting. I'm just being honest. Yeah, we're funny when it comes to they try to be non-offensive. Technically, it's also illegal to swear in public, which is hilarious.
Wow.
But you listen a lot, but very occasionally.
Let me just say the inside of your car must not be public then.
Oh, hell no. The windows are closed.
Driving is an adventure there and does induce some of that illegal language sometimes.
Oh, all the flipping time. And I'm being polite right now. Oh, no. You know that. I know. My friends know. That's the funniest thing is that when I'm driving to a hash, even, it's like Peak Freak, Pink Panther, they just look, they get black.
All right. Thanks for your time. Two shits on.
On. Take care, Rob.
To close the circle, here's the hash anthem sung by Mother Hash.
Swing low, sweet child.